Hi, I want to welcome you to a Links webinar. The title of the webinar is Teaching Adult Learners Basic Skills, Technology Skills, and we're thrilled to have you here. Let me say a little bit about Links and some of the mechanics of how this will work, and then I'll pass it over to David Rosen, who will introduce the presenter. And first of all, this is a Links-sponsored webinar. Links is a Department of Education sponsored activity or website. And it has a lot of resources for adult educators, some resources for adult learners. Some of those resources, examples of those resources include community of practice where you can have discussions with other adult educators, a bunch of different resources, books, and so forth, and a lot of other resources. So I would recommend that you go to that, and the address, and we'll put this up later too, is links.ed.gov. And then you can go, you can look around there. Then particularly want you to go to the community. You'll see that at the top on the bar at the top. If you click on that, it will take you to the community of practice, of which this is a part. We will be putting this up on Links on the YouTube section of Links, probably 2 or 3 weeks after this presentation. If in the meantime you would like to get the PowerPoint, you can email me, Steve S. Coleman, at manhattanstrategy.com, and we'll give that to you later. Again, there is a survey at the end, and we'd like your feedback on this webinar. One other logistical thing is you'll see on the right-hand side in your bar, there should be something that says questions. A number of you have already been doing that and submitting questions, but it's under the question box that you submit your questions or comments to us. So again, under the question bar, and I think, and at the end of this webinar, actually starting tomorrow, we ask you to join the discussion group in the Integrating Technology discussion group. And again, you get to that through the community tab in Links, on the Links website. There'll be some continuing discussion of some of the issues brought up in this webinar. So again, I'm thrilled to welcome you. Next, David Rosen is going to introduce our presenter, and he is a moderator of 2 groups, Integrating Technology and Program Management. And as I said, he will introduce the presenter, and I thank you very much for joining us. David?
Thanks very much, Steve. I hope you can hear me. And I noticed in the question and answer section, there are a couple of people who cannot hear. Steve or Megan, if you're on this, perhaps you could troubleshoot with them.
I will try. Make sure that you have unmuted your computer, sound is turned up. If you are having problems, let us know.
Okay, thanks, Steve. So it's my pleasure today to introduce Michael Matos. Michael, as you may know, is the Senior Director of Adult Education and Employment and Training Programs for Albany Park Community Center in Chicago. And he manages the Adult Education and ESL program. And as he is doing today, he presents at national conferences and also state and regional conferences on a variety of topics related to adult literacy, technology integration, and also standards-aligned instruction. He is, incidentally, a certified adult basic education, adult secondary education, adult education standards specialist in mathematics. And he has also been, in his past work, the Computer Technology Center Director and instructor. And I might add that Michael is a colleague of mine in a project known as the Illinois Digital Learning Lab project, which operated in 2018. So without further remarks, I'm just delighted, Michael, that you're here talking on this important topic today that many of us are interested in. I think there are nearly 180 people with us today, and I think many more who registered, and as Steve mentioned, who can get a copy of the webinar and also get a copy more quickly of the slides that Michael's going to present today. So go ahead, Michael.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully everyone can hear me well. If not, please send a message through on the comment box and we can try to troubleshoot. So here's our agenda for today. And hopefully we can follow up on this discussion with more suggestions, ideas, implementations that will enhance this presentation and those that are following along throughout the week on links, and we can definitely generate some more discussions hopefully by the end of the presentation. So looking at the agenda, we'll discuss why teach adult learners basic tech skills, or as we call it, digital literacy, some standards and where to find some of these standards, integrating technology and WIOA, just a brief, since we all are very familiar with that, and then digital literacy technology, just the process of teaching and learning, and then some ideas of websites for typing, mousing, and other computing skills, practices, and resources. Okay, so why teach adult learners basic tech skills or digital literacy? So if you have some suggestions, please type them in and we'll talk about it in a little bit. But I'm sure that we all have the idea of why these skills are needed and how they relate to life skills as well as educational attainment. Okay, so why teach adult learners basic tech skills? So obviously, you know, technology is everywhere, workplace, post-secondary institutions, and all aspects of daily life. To be literate in this changing world requires these digital literacy skills. We need to prioritize enhancing, expanding, and increasing digital literacy skills in response to changing needs. As we see in many of our organizations, this is easier said than done. We try to incorporate as much professional development as possible for our instructors to be able to make this a priority for our students. One second here. Sorry, one second. I just was going to bring up something else here, but I will go back and bring it up later. Okay, so why digital literacy is important. Knowing how to use computers is important in everyday life, of course, and here's just some of those bullet points: applying for jobs online, reading the news, banking, paying bills, searching for information, communicating with others. A favorite of my students, and hopefully we can use it to enhance their life as well. We look at some of those bullet points at communicating with others. As the economy and society changes, adult basic education evolves with one common theme, and that common theme, and there's a lot of proof behind this, not only what I'm saying, is digital literacy. Emphasis on preparing for transition to employment and higher education, collaboration with an array of institutions and organizations, and involvement with public policy. a very important feature as we talk more in detail of this so-called civic involvement. Technology related to employment readiness and the workforce. Job search is done online, job applications are done online, workforce centers, libraries, and other community-based organizations report high demand for assistance with resume writing, online job search, database tools, and career development. And that's my next question, does this happen at your organization? Are these one of many questions, or is this one of the main questions or needs that students come to you for help with when using the computer, using online resources, and completing applications? If you want to put those comments in the chat box, that would be great to talk about a little later. New technology demands in the workforce are everywhere. And you can look at some of the job tracks that you are sending your students to, some of the career paths your students have chosen, and you will find the technology demands in every single one of them. Where do we need to be? So this is a new model, right? From supported use to independent use. This to me is the main emphasis of using technology, is that independence. Get adults beyond basic skills threshold so they can use technology to learn and get jobs. Learners need to independently use computers for learning to prepare for post-secondary coursework. When my students leave the classroom and continue that education, especially online, elsewhere in the library, at home, in a coffee shop, that to me is a success. Workers need to have mastered basic skills thresholds for most jobs. So this independence is the primary goal. Okay, so here's my next question. What technology digital literacy standards are you familiar with? So can someone give me some ideas in the chat box? Okay, while you're thinking of some of them, I will move forward and show you some of the ideas that I have.
Michael, there are a couple of responses in the question and answers. I think these are answers to your questions. One person, Tina Height, says ISTE, presumably ISTE standards. Jason Ricciardi says typing. Nahoko Vignew, I hope I pronounced that right, says mouse skills. Jake Sugarman says Massachusetts Department of Education. Adam Nathanson says test taking. Sharon Geller, I guess, says basic word processing and emailing. Vicki Sexton also says ISTE standards. Mara Williams says digital health education handouts. Jason Ricciardi says the skill of typing, for example, a high school course. Amanda Dickinson says, I'm in Mississippi and our state has recently implemented a soft skills program. Jeannie Amundsen says North Star digital literacy standards, which were used, I know, in developing the North Star digital literacy assessment. Tina Height says college and career readiness standards. Carrie Hutchinson says Office. Perhaps that means MS Office, Microsoft Office. Kristen Zimmerman says North Star digital literacy. Lots of answers here. It's great. Alyssa Rapp says proficiency with Microsoft Office. Sarah Moyer says typing at a certain speed, ? Lorna Wallen says Microsoft Office specialist. Another comment on North Star digital literacy, being able to use a browser and search tools. That's Sandra Atkins. Sarah Moyer says internet research. Miriam Ayazi says students in WIOA classes are required to use technology for improving reading literacy. Jason Ricciardi says communications. Nancy Miller says Microsoft programs. I don't think I'm going to be able to get to all of these. There's so many. Anyway, how to protect your. I'm just going to go really quickly. How to protect yourself online, file storage, navigate Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Again, ISTE, Maryland content standards for technology, job searching. I've cannot find the chat box, somebody says. So the chat box should be in the upper right-hand corner of your screen where it says go to webinar control panel.
Can I jump in real quickly?
Sure.
You actually put in your questions or comments in the question under questions. So you should have that. You may not have the chat feature, but you should do it under questions.
Okay. So more answers to your question, Michael. Research, students need to know how to access their schedules and administrative information. IC3, phone apps for everyday use and texting, creating resumes online, academic research, and just somebody says, we don't need everybody's name. Okay, so I'll just give you the answers. Create and use presentations, entertainment, and that's it.
Well, that's great.
A lot of good answers.
I hope that this many people keep following along through the rest of the week. That would be great discussion afterwards. So just look at some of those basic literacy or digital literacy standards. Most of them, and as many mentioned, develop a commonly accepted set of digital literacy standards that will facilitate empowerment of adults needing technology skills for, once again, daily living, employment preparation, and transition to higher education. And some of those that were mentioned are here and are available on this PowerPoint. We have the North Star Digital Literacy Assessment standards, which were recently changed somewhat. A few people mentioned the ISTE standards for students. That is in there as well. The re-imaging the role of technology in education. A National Education Technology Plan also has some standards in there, and I've got two links for that because one is actually listed in the links community, and the other one goes directly to the TechEd Gov files. In our state, in Illinois, as many other states I'm sure have, as part of their standards or as an addition to their standards, we have the Illinois Community College Board, ICCB, has a technology skills checklist for students. And this is a checklist which could be followed as common standards, those things needed for students to learn to build this independence and to keep the instructors and the agency, the college on track for the skills that they're looking for to enhance the student learning. Okay, and then a few of you mentioned the WIOA plan and some of the skills mentioned in the WIOA document and integrating technology in WIOA, and we can take a quick look at that. See if I can pull it up here real quick. So in this plan, there are some resources for integrating technology. As you can see up here. And within that, there are some professional development needs, and as well as some of what they're looking for as standards within the teaching of technology or integrating technology into an adult education plan. Okay, digital literacy, technology, and teaching and learning. So key components of digital literacy lessons. So we have, as some of you already mentioned, mousing, keyboarding, using the internet, and manipulating documents and drives. Very basic skills, but skills that will lead to that independence, to that continued learning outside of the classroom, to being able to fulfill some life skills, finding that job, sending that letter via email, or communicating within a platform that relates, for example, to your student, to your child's school, or maybe your own continued education in a post-secondary. So we're looking at the core skills here. So this is what we want to base our lessons on, and the activities that go with it. Parts identification, keyboarding skills, mousing skills, computer navigation, and demonstrate customizing skills. So if we look at the parts identification, just to detail that a little more, we distinguish between desktop and laptop, and of course we can add to that, any kind of electronic book, any kind of phone, smartphone, any kind of pad, all of those things we could distinguish what they're called, and then the uses of them, and how to manipulate through them. Identify specific computer hardware, a system unit, a monitor, a printer, a keyboard, mouse, a touchpad, USB port. Identify the storage media, for example, a USB flash drive, or we could talk about the hard drive, the external, the internal. A lot of these things are important for students, especially when they're looking to purchase their own computer system or their own electronic system. Identify icons on the desktop, the internet browser, the control panel, the recycle bin. If you're using something with a cam, like for example, I have their Skype. If we go to the keyboard skills, we practice finger placement and home keys. We're not looking for, the professional, the stenographer. We're looking for someone who is comfortable getting to that place where they are comfortable using the keyboard, and they will build an adequate speed once they find that comfortability within the use of the keyboard. Demonstrate knowledge of function and placement of keys on the keyboard. Some of the basic ones are there. Practice the number keys, building speed and accuracy, and I'll have many examples for this later, and as well as hopefully as we go through the question and answer groups through the week, we'll also come up with a lot more that are not listed there, but that you use with your students. Mousing skills, identify types of mice. For example, mouse, touchpad, touch screen. Identify mouse pointer shapes and match them to the correct context of use. And we have some of those shapes there. Demonstrate appropriate use and ability to right click, left click. Very important skill. Something that takes a little longer for some of our new users or novice users. The double click, the drag and drop. And that's why there are so many free opportunities online to practice the double click and drag and drop, and using those features of the left click. Use mouse to select checkboxes, use drop-down menus and scroll. Also some features that very basic for some users, a skill that needs to be practiced quite a bit for others. computer navigation. So we want to turn computer on, monitor on, off, log on to the computer. Probably a very important feature that once again needs to be practiced. Adjust volume and mute audio. Plug in headphones correctly and use when appropriate. You know, just getting the right sound, especially if you're using headphones that have a mic connected to them. Sometimes that takes some practice, and where to find the buttons and the switches and the levers to work this. It takes a little time to navigate. And then navigate documents, locate open documents and other media, name, save. Another skill, which to me is a little higher level skill for many of our students, and once again takes a lot of practice. Once they start building this independence, this is definitely a skill that is needed. Just to find what you created and edit it, and maybe email it to someone. Demonstrate customizing skills. So this is a little bit higher on that development of skills. Demonstrate the ability to use a recycle bin correctly for trashing and retrieving items. Demonstrate understanding that it is possible to customize a computer for increased accessibility. The main reason computers were invented, right? Accessibility. So this is something, let our students know, because there's a lot of features in there to make that happen. Demonstrate understanding that that mice can be customized for left-handed people, and that the speed of clicking can also be customized. Very important. I have a lot of left-handed users, and they many times need that customization just to feel that it is comfortable for them to navigate through the computer. Demonstrate understanding that screen resolution can be changed. Once again, that accessibility component, and that is definitely part of computing. If we look at curriculum design, lesson planning, and instruction, very important features. I call them the 6 basics. When we're looking at making students independent, we want to make sure that throughout the learning process, that everything that we deliver is detailed and it takes them through a navigation process. Needs assessment and participation of the learners in planning what to be learned. So we need to give them one of those assessments. Assessments can be created. They can be created at Google or Google Forms, Google Docs. You can use some free online assessments to find out where your students are in the digital literacy skills. North Star, of course, has their digital literacy assessment, as well as some other online platforms. So look for those, and of course, I'm always into the free, so try to find a free one for your students or create one. Well-planned and detailed instructions for all activities, letting your students know when to use the right side of the mouse, the left side, right click, left click, letting your students know when you need to drag and drop, when you need to type in a text box, when you need to hold down the control key to find the little hand to navigate to a hyperlink. All of these things, and what I would suggest is through pictures and detailed instructions, lead them from activity to activity to try to get this work done, and lead them to independently completing this work through this detailed delivery. Careful attention to sequence of content and reinforcement from simple to complex. Just as we're talking about here on the skills, look at it and for every activity from simple to complex and within your whole lesson plan. Learning by doing. Understanding of new knowledge is enhanced when they apply it. Practice their newly acquired skills and attitudes, and then reflect on what they have just done. Let your students voice their opinions, voice their needs, follow along, sit next to them, see what's going on. And then once again, let them do it. Okay. Teamwork, using small groups for encouragement. And then individual, building accountability, showing how they know that they know really what they know is what I meant to say there. One important feature that I have noticed, especially when setting up a computer lab, is how to set up that computer lab. Do you want it to be in traditional rows? Do you want it to be in the round? Just like if you would set up your classroom. Do you want to have the ability to move it around if you're using laptops or books? How are you going to set up these groups, and do you have the ability to move things around to set up these different learning communities at different times to build that teamwork in one aspect or to individualize it in another? Very important, not only in the classroom when you're using hard copies, but in the classroom when you're using technology.
Michael, this is David, and we have a few questions, so
Sure.
Let us know when you're ready.
I'm ready now. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So early on, someone asked, are you going to be addressing the needs of ESOL students or English language learners?
Well, we could adjust that by starting out with technology skills, websites, and instruction in their own language, and we can customize that as we look for those customizations online. And there's quite a few, and I also have some examples later on when we talk about the resources. And I know that we're teaching English, but however, to get those basic skills, to build that independence, to build more skills to learn, more English, then we need to maybe start off with something that's in their own language just to get those basic skills.
Okay. So the next two questions may be related or may not. It's hard for me to know. One is, can you define digital literacy? And then a couple of people have said that their students are past the basic digital literacy skills that you've been talking about. And one person wonders what's next after that. So is what I'm thinking the question is around the definition is digital literacy really basic digital literacy, or is it intermediate or advanced digital literacy? How do you approach that?
Well, as far as basic, I guess we could say that using the mouse or the keyboard might be basic. Navigating through the computer and navigating through websites and being able to put in a software or, for example, go online and work through a platform, that's never basic, because that's different for every platform and every software you use. So that requires a lot more skills. Searching online can be considered that third level that I was talking about, or the fifth level I was talking about, which is navigating and knowing what you're searching for and whether that information is something you can use. All of these things are features that are a little higher skill. Then, of course, we have students that probably have mastered all these underlying skills. And all of this is part of digital literacy and definition of digital literacy. All of this is part of digital literacy. I think we're looking at the literacy word as in terms of an educational level. However, it's all part of a bigger idea of being able to build that independence on the computer. And that independence will lead you into a lot of other obstacles that you'll have to learn to manipulate through. We have, for example, students that go and get certified in MOS, Microsoft Office systems. We have students that get their certification in IC3, and even further. So all of these skills would have to be learned and practiced and become very comfortable with before you get to those other levels. So thinking of them in terms of that they're very basic, I'm not sure if that's the way to look at it. It's being comfortable with these and practicing them as you become more independent using the computer.
Okay, a couple of questions about the North Star Digital Literacy Assessment. One, is it free?
There are parts of it that are free. There's a free assessment at the beginning of the page. As soon as you sign into, you'll see that there's a free assessment where it takes you into different categories. However, because it's free, it doesn't keep track of your score. You would have to print out your score. If you do decide to pay for it, then it keeps track of your scores. It lets you know where you can find some of these skills and practice these skills for free. But as far as keeping a like an SMS system where you can go back and forth and see your measured skill levels and so on, that you have to pay for.
Okay, and I believe in the paid version, students can get certificates too, and programs
Correct.
can get
They
some
can
training
get
in using it.
They can get certificates that are supposedly known in the work field. So when you go apply for a job, you can put it down as like you would put down Microsoft Office specialist in Excel or Word or all of the features, and you can put that down, and most employers should know about it. Yeah.
Another question about North Star. Do you find that the North Star assessment is too advanced for some students? And if so, which ones?
Parts of the North Star assessment are kind of advanced for students. Everything but the basic one, the basic computing, which is, I believe, the very first one. They're advanced for students. However, I have used the email one with some pretty low-level ELL learners, and they've done well because they use the email quite a bit in their own language, so they were able to distinguish some of the features in English. So it depends, but I think that from all of the units, the first one is probably the most manageable with the lowest levels, and the rest, of course, they would need some help.
Okay. Another question, do you have a curriculum written that can be downloaded and taught? I presume that means a digital literacy skills curriculum. If I've gotten that wrong, Janet O'Neill, who asked the question, please reframe the question so I can ask it correctly.
I do.
You do have a curriculum?
I have a couple of them, yeah.
And can you make those available?
I could.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
So if your email isn't on the slides, maybe you could just type it into the chat area for people so that they could contact you to get your curriculum. Oh, here's a question. Could you send a list of assessments that you use or that you prefer?
Yes, I can. Mm-hmm. And some of the free practice sites that I'm going to point out in a little bit also have free assessments on them.
Mm-hmm. This is not a question, it's a comment addressing the earlier question about will you address the needs of ESOL students. The comment from Jason Ricciardi is the terms themselves are useful for an ESOL course. A question from Vinod Lobo is, there seems to be a gap between old school digital literacy of desktop, mouse, Office, and the new tech world of Google, Cloud Docs, and mobile. And this includes standards, assessments, curriculum. How do we address this?
Yeah, and she's right. If you look at some of the standards that are out there now, there is a gap. We have to push those people that put together these standards and let them know that there are those gaps. We can look, once again, we can do some searches online. We can go into the links community and look at how others have handled these new technologies and how they've built activities and try to advance with those skills with their students. But yeah, this is all new territory, and it's still developing. And you will see as maybe that some of the participants looked into some of the standards that there are those gaps, and we need to, as instructors, know that they're there, and we need to look and build on our own because they are needed.
Okay. So there are some more questions, but why don't you go ahead, Michael, and then we'll take another break and get to some of the other questions.
Here, we can stop again. These are computer. So here's the computer skills levels, and this is one of the questions. These are computer skills students should know and be able to do independently at various levels. Okay, so as you can see, the levels here. So we have the basic, which is foundational computer literacy skills. We have the intermediate, which is computer literacy and competency beyond the foundational level, okay, that we talked about prior. And then proficient, which is computer literacy and competency beyond the intermediate level applied to educational and work settings. And this is what I was talking about, that all of these skills work hand in hand, whether they're at a basic, an intermediate, or proficient, and leading to that independence where you have the educational and work settings where you can work through the obstacles or the demands at either one of those or both of those settings. Okay, so if there are more questions pertaining to the skills and the levels, can we go over that real quick before I go to the websites?
Sure. Let's see. There are a couple of comments about, a couple more comments about North Star from Ashley Winkle. One of them is that North Star is not as easy as it looks. And she also comments that this is good for teachers to go through as well as students. And I might add, in at least one state, teachers are required to do some of the North Star digital literacy assessment. That's Rhode Island. A question, yeah, I don't know, maybe other states are doing that too, but at least I know Rhode Island is. There's a question from Liz Franduti. Michael, do you think the digital literacy assessment certificates are actually known in the corporate world? You sounded a little bit dubious. I want to know because my program is considering becoming a sponsor site to offer the certification to adult learners. There's some cost involved, so I want to make sure it's worth it.
Well, you know, I can't say that in every place they're known, as well as for any of the Microsoft certifications. I mean, I think it's up to that employer to look up the information and see how viable they are and whether there is, you know, something behind it. So that's why I'm saying that. Not that I've had any difficulty with any of my students putting that down in a resume and not being accepted as a skill that they know. They provide students with certificates or badges, as they call them, so they can learn that in different levels. Now, for example, I know a few employers that have contacted me about an IC3 certification. Like, what is that? That was their question. So I think that because it may not have a big name like Microsoft behind it, that might be the only stumbling block. Not that they're not important and that it took some skill to receive.
I'd just like to add to that the state that developed the assessment, Minnesota, they're very well known. And part of it, I believe that employers, or at least employment and training people, were involved in determining the standards upon which the assessments were based. So in your state, if you think it might not be well known, but you want to do something about that, you might share the standards with employers and ask them, are these the kinds of things that you want your employees to be able to do? There's another comment about North Star, that they have a link to a free curriculum on their website. That's on their new website, and the same people who developed the assessment actually developed the curriculum, so it's pretty well aligned.
Mm-hmm.
Someone adds, the best modules to teach digital literacy are free at gcflearnfree. Is it com or org? This person says com, I'm not sure. Anyway, I know you're going to be talking about that, Michael.
Yeah, we have all of that coming up.
Okay,
great. So websites and more, typing, mousing, and other computing skills, practice, and resources. Digital literacy websites with free and low-cost skills practice. That's what I'm emphasizing here, and those are the examples I'm giving you. Many of you are hopefully familiar with the digitallearn.org. Once again, you want a free assessment, here it is. If you're new to computers, haven't used them for a while, unsure, uncomfortable, they have a lot of tools to gain that confidence, and hopefully you become successful in the independence that the technology use gives you. So the digitallearn.org, and as you can see, it's in English and Spanish right now. And just by looking at the snapshot here, you can see that why use computers, getting started on a computer, using a PC, Windows 10, and so on. And there are assessments that are free on there as well. And I will go into some of these, but not all of them. Okay, and then the digitallearn.org tools for learners. So this is a bibliography of a particular library, the Gain Borden Public Library District, which put this together. And as you can see, you'll find a variety of books that look at the technology integration world and the design to help you design that the skills learning curriculum that you might need, or the standards that you might want to look for to build on within your program. The digital learn tools and resources for trainers. So as someone mentioned earlier, some resources for the trainer, and maybe even some training. So each class contains a minimum of 3 supporting documents, which generally include a design document as an instructor's guide. It has PowerPoint presentations, practice files, and so on. It could be used by the trainer as well as delivered to the students. So it's a good resource for instructors. Once again, through digitallearn.org. Looking at the industry as a whole and relating these activities and these skills a lot more to on the job. elearningindustry.com. It's an online community of professionals looking at the industry of e-learning, with articles, concepts, software available. And once again, the site is free to use. A lot of questions, a lot of the same questions that we've been asking here could be asked within their community. You will find a lot of the same ideas and even further on how to get your students involved in e-learning, as well as the instructors. And then, of course, gcflearnfree.org, which is a site that I've used to teach whole classes for a term or two. Free site. It has technology help for just about everything related to technology. If you're using, by some chance, if you're using Microsoft, 2009 or 10, they might still have some lessons in there on how to, navigate through that, as well as even how to set up your Facebook account so you do have that privacy that you wanted. Very everything, they have a new one on Instagram. So a lot of those things that that you wanted to teach your students about, but maybe didn't have the resources or did not want to pay for them, they're free on here. And then the GCF Aprende Libre, which is the Spanish version. These sites are updated periodically. They are a wealth of resources and easy to use, both for the instructors and the students. And as I was mentioning earlier about looking for the language to start with those skills, this is a perfect example of that. And as you can see, gcflearnfree.org global, and the different languages that they have their formats in. So we got French, Russian, Indonesian, Greek, Mandarin, and Norwegian, as well as the Spanish one we talked about earlier. There are some other languages as well, and they do keep adding. Another site, and this is probably one of my favorite ones, is In Pictures Tutorials, which is inpix.net. Computer tutorials based on pictures, not words. So once again, looking at those English language learners, right? Here's pictures, here's screenshots with color accents, help you focus on what's important. The pictures, they're all free, and you can definitely incorporate them into your lessons, into the activities, and help your students, guide your students through the technology used to complete a lesson, a reading, a life skill, educational or workplace activity. The North Star Digital Literacy, which we've talked quite a bit about already, and the learning guide, which I will not click on the learning guide because I will show you where the learning guide takes us, as David mentioned earlier. This is, they just revamped their website. So as you can see from the snapshot, your digital test your digital literacy. So as you can see, the take assessment, that's free. Okay, and then of course become a testing center location that leads you to other things, which you can become a testing center location. They will help you to become a proctor and so on. So this is where that takes you to, the St. Paul Public Library. So it's a guide that contains instructional material designed to help learners build the basic computing skills defined by North Star. And as you can see, in this area here is in the middle here where it says North Star Learning Guide Home. You can see the different modules and the learning activities that will take you through those modules. And we could go back to this, but for the sake of time, I'm going to keep moving through this. And of course, in our discussion group, we can talk a little bit more about this and detail it more. I remember when I was 18 years ago, just starting to integrate technology a little more in my classes. The St. Paul Public Library was a major source in helping me with that. The activities were endless and very well formatted. Tech Boomers is a free educational website designed to teach older adults and other inexperienced internet users. Okay, so it introduces users to new websites, internet-based applications. It's It uses an easily navigated directory, which has free videos, article tutorials, and on-site product alerts, and so on. The information is all free. Of course, the products you would have to buy, but it is also very useful to, as we mentioned earlier, bringing some of these new technologies to light and how to incorporate them into our instruction. And then this is my only like book example, and this is a free book where you can get into as an online version. Of course, it's out and about in English.com, and when you go to this website, it just asks for you to put together an email and a password, and then you get free access to this introductory computer course for beginning English learners. And it's a lot of pictures, not a lot of words, and it goes through different sections, all for free. You know, got the build basic word processing skills, navigate internet use and use an email, master useful vocabulary related to everyday topics. So it does have that vocabulary part in there. Important life skills through practical hands-on activities related, once again, to classroom, job, health, and the community. And then, you know, helping you to, once again, gain that independence and confidence in using a computer. Any questions on those? David?
Michael, there are a number of questions, but first, actually, there have been a lot of requests for your slides and some requests for curricula that you've referred to. And I noticed that a few people are having trouble getting access to the chat. So I'm going to do something for those who can't access the chat but want to contact Steve Coleman to get the slides, and to contact you to get other things. I'm going to very carefully and slowly read your email addresses. So get your pencils or pens ready, folks. Steve Coleman is S. Coleman. I'll spell that. S as in Samuel, C-O-L-E-M-A-N, at Manhattan Strategy. That's all one word, all lowercase. ManhattanStrategy.com. So Steve Coleman is S. Coleman at ManhattanStrategy.com. That's how you get the slides. If you want to contact Michael directly and get the curriculum that he referred to before, his email is matosmichael2@gmail.com. M-A-T-O-S Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, number 2. So that's all one word, matosmichael2@gmail.com. So that should help a number of people who have requested the materials. So questions. This is a question, is the curriculum free or must the person have a paid membership to the site? I'm not sure what that means, but I am guessing it means the North Star digital literacy curriculum. I think that's free, right, Michael?
Yes, it is. It's free through the St. Paul Library.
Okay. This is a question that I don't know if you've addressed. Can you give some feedback on Google Classroom as a resource for teaching adults technology and ITDML?
So Google Classroom has a number of classrooms that deal with just digital literacy, and that would be something that, I mean, that's probably a whole presentation on its own. So there is quite a few within there once you get into Google Classrooms to be able to find a classroom that works with just teaching the digital literacy skills. a great source. Many of my teachers do use a variety of them.
Okay. Here's a person who would like some feedback. Oh, you did that. Okay, sorry. Nahoko Vigno has asked, what specific skills are you talking about at the proficient level?
So mainly navigating skills and working to complete applications online, looking to be able to open up, for example, a Word document, typing, checking the spelling, saving it, maybe even able to add a hyperlink on your own, moving a little further, maybe opening up Excel or PowerPoint, a spreadsheets or a presentation format where you can work through that and build basic working through a spreadsheet format, building a spreadsheet or building a formatted presentation. Nothing major, but just that you can use them and actually build something.
Okay. Janet Ursulis has a comment about North Star and about whether or not it's difficult to use. She says it offers some guidance about content, but it's difficult in its use of meta talk about technology and its elements. And I know that Janet is an English language teacher, and so it may be that she's referring particularly to an ESOL context. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I mean, this discussion has gone on for a while about North Star and the pluses and negatives about using it, especially with lower level English language learners. If you are going to use that, you have to have a supplement, maybe once again, if it's in their own language, before you get them to one of these pre-test or so on. Yeah, it's something that you have to look at, see what is the particular level that you want to cater this to.
Okay. Lee Smith has several comments here. One is that it's challenging for ESOL teachers who are moving from rural site to rural site, where internet access is itself a challenge. She says, I think she says, English language learning students use phones mostly, and trying to engage them via text, Facebook, etc., but long to pursue the workplace higher ed opportunities that could open to them if they could only get on board. Also, some skepticism about students trying to enroll in a joint email program. And there are some security issues for them if they're not citizens.
Yeah, I mean, all of those are usually concerns or obstacles that when you're building a community and using technology to build these skills and having the students become more independent and meeting those the needs of the the century, you have to look into all these things, whether you have enough bandwidth in your internet, whether there's some of these legal problems and so on. All of this has to be evaluated. Is there an easy solution? No. Talk to those that have the ability to give you more bandwidth. Talk to those that have the ability to give you any internet at all. And look for funding sources where you might be able to find the funds. It's not easy. And as far as a lot of the resources for phone use and apps and so on, I do have quite a bit of that material as well. And that's something that could be shared with anyone who sends me a response to my email. I have a variety of documents there, probably hundreds, if not 1,000 documents of activities, and many of them related to using free apps and so on.
Okay. Sherry Lahane at the Providence Public Library suggests the American Library Association's definition of digital literacy, and she's provided a web address for that, and I shared that in the chat area as well.
Great, thank you.
Let's see. Sherry says she also likes to include web literacy, a broad set of skills indicating proficiency in reading, writing, and participating on the web.
Great, yeah, definitely.
Alyssa Rapp asks, are some of these programs able to be accessed on mobile devices? And if so, which ones? For many ESL educators who work for nonprofits, space and resources are an issue. Best ways to work with our students digitally are to have them download apps or access websites on their phones.
Yeah, and as I was mentioning, some of them are accessible by an app, and I don't have a list of these apps on this presentation, but once again, if you reach out to me in my email, I can send those to you.
She also asks, how can we build literacy skills with students just using smartphones?
Well, that is it's the same skills basically. I mean, you're still navigating through a technological device to build independence, to learn more, to fill out applications, to send out messages. So it's still using a technology. It doesn't necessarily. This is not only for a computer. So the phone is most likely going to be our computer, our only computer source in the future. So so yeah, this is something that you're building a technology skill still to build that independence.
I'd like to add something to that. Some of you are aware of the Adult Literacy X Prize, which is now winding down in terms of the development of the apps. That part is actually over, and moving into a community competition phase. So there are 5 semi-finalist apps that may be still free. I know they were free through December, possibly not now, but are designed to be low cost. And these 5 apps all address very basic literacy for native speakers and also English language learners. And for more information about that, you could email me. I'll put my email address in there. And I could also send you a couple of articles I've written about some ways to help students get on board with using those apps. Let's see. Jean Perry says, you've got a better chance of finding what you're looking for by going to all topics than technology. And I'm not sure what the context of that is. Are you, Michael?
No, not sure.
Okay. So Jean, ask the question again and give us a little more context. So Michael, question about how much digital literacy skills instructors are responsible for teaching. My students know basic computer skills. Can I forget about teaching digital literacy skills at this point or not?
Well, how comfortable do they feel if you give them an assignment at home or outside of the classroom to work on that assignment using technology? If you got them to that point, well, there's one goal achieved. How comfortable are they to look for a job? How comfortable are they to fill out an application online, or even to try to create a resume online on the computer? If you've met these levels of the students' comfortable levels, then yes, just start delivering your instruction in a format, a technology format, whether it be on the phone, on a laptop, a desktop, a pad. So I'm not sure if there's ever an ending point, right? There's not, oh, okay, I'm done. Everybody seems to be able to open up their document and type something on it. It's a continuous effort.
Many years ago, a colleague of mine in Massachusetts struggled with this whole question of what we're trying to do here. And he came up with a very simple definition that I keep coming back to, is that we ourselves, as teachers and as residents in the United States, residents, citizens, want, and we want our students too, to be comfortable and competent in using technology. Comfortable and competent. Those two words resonate with me. Another question, this one from Lorna Wallen. She says, I once used, this is an app called Today's Meet in class to interact with the students. The site has shut down. Is there another site that you can recommend? And actually, Lorna, I know what you're talking about. I was disappointed when they shut down, and I have found a couple of others. So if you email me, I will dig that out for you. And I'll put my email in the chat area.
Great.
A couple of people have said thanks, and this is awesome, and they're excited to get back to work, and the webinar is fabulous. Let's see. Another comment on North Star. I use the North Star assessments often as a teaching tool, going through step by step with students. It's not designed as a teaching tool, but there's nothing that would stop you from using it. And that's an interesting observation. Yeah. Michael, do you use it as a teaching tool?
Yes, especially the the curriculum that's tied to it through the St. Paul Library. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
A comment about everyone.org. It helps locate low-priced computers and internet service discounts in different areas of communities. That's from Vicky Sexton. Comment on that. In one of the resources, actually it's right now it's on a U.S. Department of Education webpage that I understand is going to be modified very soon. It says that everyone.org automatically makes students and teachers in adult ed programs eligible for all what had previously been income eligible only services. That is no longer true. Those services for example, low-cost internet and computers, laptops and desktops are available, but only to low-income families, and they have to, families who are eligible for subsidized school lunches, for example. So unfortunately, that is no longer subsidized for adult ed teachers. But everyone, sorry, I'm having trouble saying it. Everyone on, one word, .org is still very useful for low-income families getting access to the internet.
Yeah, we've used it quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Our programs also teach our students to evaluate web pages and articles for accuracy. That's from Lee Reese. That's a good observation. Lee also says peer-reviewed. I'm not sure what the context for that is. Michael, more requests for Michael's email address, and it is in the chat area, and it is also in the Q&A area. I'm not sure that everybody can see that, but if you can get access to one of those areas, it's listed there. Another site has been recommended. This is by Angela Folks. Learningchocolate.com has good vocabulary lessons for ESOL and learning about computer skills.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's quite a few ESL or ELL based websites that obviously have a computing or a technology component section.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So here's a question for you, Michael. Do you think increased use of technology in the job application process has decreased applicants' chances of getting a good job due to overloading of applications?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
It's obviously more accessible, but I'm not sure. I know that whenever I put up a job posting through one of the major job search engines or so on. You can get hundreds, of course, but when before, if it was by hand, you might get a lot less. So there might be some truth to that or not. It's debatable.
Linda Beliveau has and by the way, my apologies if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. I may have done that several times here. Has a comment about the Adult Literacy X Prize apps, and it's about what kinds of devices they're available on. They are all available on Android mobile devices, and some are also available on iOS devices, Apple devices, but not many. But they're all available on Android devices. Let's see. A comment from Jean Perry. Ironically, GCF Learn Free does not list all technology lessons under the technology heading. You'll find more under all topics. Good tip. Thanks, Jean. Jason Ricciardi says the major and most popular organizations may receive thousands of applications for one job. So there's at least a colleague's answer to that question. How are we doing on time, by the way? Do you have more to present here, Michael? If so, I'll stop.
Yeah, we got about 15 minutes.
Okay. Why don't you finish up your presentation, and then if there's still time, we'll get to some of the remaining questions and comments. I do want to just remind everybody that Michael's going to be available for the rest of this week asynchronously for your questions and your comments, your further explorations. And this is going to be in the Links Integrating Technology group starting tomorrow. So if presumably you're all Links members, you may not all have joined the Integrating Technology group. You're welcome to join. I think you can read the messages even if you're not a member, but if you want to participate in the discussion, you'll need to join the group. Okay, go ahead, Michael.
Okay, so just some reference material. Some of these we've actually been talking about, but just to give you some more ideas and more places to, when you get some free time today, look through. So of course the links resources, valuable, very valuable information on here, and these are just 3 of them. Design technology for adult learners, applying adult learning theory, integrating digital literacy into English language instruction. Very, very useful companion learning resources you can see there. And then just some of the professional development resources that pertain to many of the things that we talked about today and how we can help instructors prepare for this delivery and so on. So those, of course, will be on the PowerPoint and on links. And then just some other resources, and some of these I'm sure you're familiar with. These are mousing practices, all free. We got the skill for seniors. It's not only for seniors, but that's the name of it. Some mousing skills. Jig Zone, building any kind of puzzle which you can relate to any other topic as well, to kind of incorporate and integrate in this case, drag and drop, right, with the mouse, and work through other subjects and other questions related to the picture or the topic of the picture. Great site to use. Free map puzzles, learn USA or world geography. It's under yourchildlearns.com, but these are great puzzles. Once again, drag and drop. There's also some typing in a text box kind of thing in there as well. Mouse practice, the Burlington County Library has a great mouse practice. Mouseprogram.com, once again, another very useful mouse on the computer practice. New user tutorial, which is in Spanish. There's an English version as well, and this one's the Spanish version is the one I highlighted on here, but you can find the other. And then the Palm Beach County Library System mousing tutorial. This one is very extensive. It takes a little while, but at the end you get a certificate and you can print it out. It's just a certificate for the knowledge of mousing. It's not something that's accredited or anything like that, but it's definitely makes your student feel like they've accomplished something. It's a very nice free source. Typing practice, we have the CTE keyboarding lessons. This is through the Utah, I believe, University. And then a free typing tutorial online with free typing lessons. Power typing, use this quite a bit. And it's also a very important source for free typing lessons, keyboarding lessons and ideas. Lesson planner, it gives you a lot of different topics to work through typing. SenseLang, which is used quite a bit, free touch typing program. And basically you can download, I think you just need an email account and a password. Online free typing lessons, it's using the standard keyboard, of course, power typing and so on. So that takes you to different levels. Typing games, so games in teaching any technology skill are important, and they're a continuous play, so there's a lot of reinforcement there. Typing, learntyping.org, another good site. Typingtest.com, which actually gives you results on your tests. There's also games online, and then the Typing Web, which not only has a whole set of different resources, but it has their own little typing activity as well on there. So those are all the typing practice. Other computer practice skills, we have the Digital Literacy Home for Microsoft. Complete resource for every level, including all the Microsoft software, free, and they use them as sessions, class sessions. Online certification and employment testing, great examples on how to test for different certifications, and of course to actually get the certifications there's a fee for the testing. Free government clip art, another feature to use as well. Online certification exams, once again similar to the expert rating certifications, where they'll give you some practice, and then of course you'll have to pay for the certifications. Free online tutorials on just about anything related to technology at baycongroup.com. Publisher Glencoe McGraw-Hill has a computer education. I checked. There's some free items on there, but to get the whole series of the class sections, you have to pay. There is a fee for it. Skills assessment training, needs analysis. A great way to find out where the needs are and assessing the skills for free. Test your Microsoft IQ. Once again, a free IQ test on different software within the Microsoft Access, Excel, PowerPoint, Word, so on. And then looking at nonprofit technology community and how to build that nonprofit computer lab or program or so on, who you can work with, funding you could attain, all of this on n10.org. And the Integrated Digital English Acceleration, which is IDEA. This is a program that teaches English language skills in the context of college and careers for learners who face the largest language gaps. So, of course, our ELL learners. So those are programs that they offer, and that to look into that a little bit more. And that is about it. So I still have about 5 minutes for questions.
Yep. Do please, we still have, actually a lot of people have stuck with us here. Of
Yeah.
the 217 people who originally logged in, 204 people are still with us after an hour and a half. That's quite remarkable, Michael. And a number of people have commented how much they have really benefited from what you've presented. And just a reminder, you can still dialogue with Michael on the discussion that will be held for 4 days this week, Tuesday through Friday, in integrating technology. And I have posted some information about how to join that on links.ed.gov. That's where it will be held under integrating technology group. But do please complete the survey. We really appreciate your feedback. Whatever you have to say, we certainly welcome hearing it. A couple of comments and questions still in the remaining 3 or 4 minutes. Let's see. Jeremy Storley says, it seems to me most people overestimate their own level of digital literacy. Nearly every student I've worked with has some pretty significant gaps.
That's
People, yeah, you want to comment on that, Michael?
That's correct. I mean, many, including my adult basic ed or ASE students that are natives, and they'll say, "Well, I'm a native. I speak English. I can work through a computer." That's not always the case.
Yep. So a number of people have asked whether the webinar will be archived. Yes, it will, but it usually takes a few weeks for that to happen. So the person to check on that, if you don't get an announcement about the archive, you could check with Steve Coleman, and his email address is right there. Let's see. I've made a couple of comments about things that you could contact me about, and my email address is there in the Q&A. So feel free to contact me. Let's see. Someone asks, this is Nichelle Smith McCaskill asks, would everyone.org help those retired with low-cost internet? As long as they're income eligible, I think so. I'm not positive of that.
Yeah.
Do you know, Michael?
As long as the income is right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sherry Lahane says, not sure I understood the comment about using digital literacy assessments as a teaching tool per se, but I think in doing so, it invalidates it as a fair assessment. Learners will memorize the correct answer. And then she adds yes to the St. Paul curriculum. And then she says, if I misunderstood, ignore it.
Okay.
Let's see. Is there a way to, Christy Conrad asks, is there a way to compile all of these resources and distribute? They are. They're the slides. And you can get a copy of the slides, Christy, by emailing Steve Coleman. Let's see. Tina Height says, we do not teach digital literacy as a separate skill, but integrate it into all of our classes, starting with an introductory course that focuses on computer basics as well as other soft skills and academic skills. Are others using a more integrated method for teaching digital literacy? Tina's a really important comment, I think, for everybody to think about, which is a way to integrate, and Michael, you have certainly addressed this in the presentation, but actually how to go about integrating digital literacy skills with whatever you're teaching. There is a curriculum that does that for English language students. There's been a lot of discussion about that on links in the English language learning group, and I encourage you to go there and actually look at the curriculum.
And it should definitely be integrated. It's not like, okay, now we're going to do technology. There shouldn't have to be an announcement, right? It should be part of integrated into your teaching as a whole.
So a question for you, Michael, from Deborah Barrett. Do you have any touchpad practice sites? We use Chromebooks, no mice.
Yes,
and
I do.
Students have a hard time with the touchpads.
Yes, I do. Send me the request to my email. I've already gotten 32 requests from my email.
You're going to be busy answering email today. Okay. Oh, here's a tough question for you. I think it's a tough question. From Tim Wells, are any of these resources downloadable for use in a classroom with no internet access?
I'm sure that if you can access them somewhere where there is internet and then download them, you can use them that way. There are some that that are made for that, but not many.
Okay. A couple of people have commented on how helpful the typing websites are. And thank you for those, Michael. Let's see. Nahoko asks, how about teaching how to create PowerPoint presentations, inserting images and hyperlinks?
Oh yeah, there's quite a few websites on that. There's a lot of websites that start with the 5 slides and give you a whole template on the 5 slides and work your way through those. So I've got some of those on my email as well, on my Google Docs.
Okay. Here's a question from Nahoko. Does bacongroup.com teach how to create PowerPoint presentations?
I think they have a section where they might give you just some pointers and maybe some resources to go to. Not through their site, but some other resources.
Okay. Holly, Ueda, UEDA asks, how can I get into the survey? I'm clicking, but not getting in. The only thing I can suggest, Holly, is if you copy and paste the web address into your browser, maybe that would work. Okay, I think we're running out of time. I want to thank you so much, Michael, for doing this presentation today. Looking forward to your joining us in integrating technology, and the your in this case is plural. I hope many of you who have joined us in the webinar will also join us, and feel free to follow up and feel free to post any questions that I didn't get clearly stated, and other questions that occur to you between now and Friday of this week. So thanks,
Great.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Michael and David.
Thank you.
This webinar is now over.